Hello and welcome to the AccelerateHER podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Pirrie, and as CEO of AccelerateHER, I have got the best job in the world. Throughout this podcast, we're going to hear from some of the incredible female founders that we work with. We'll hear their highs, their lows, and we'll revel in their achievements. We'll cover topics like raising investment, getting a product to market, growing a team, and we'll hear from the people in the ecosystem who have supported them. We're going to hear from amazing founders like Kate Cameron, Danae Schell, and the people who've worked with them like Evelyn McDonald. If this is your first time engaging with AccelerateHER, well, that's a great place to start. But look out for us on social media. You'll find us on Instagram and LinkedIn to see what other events we're running across Scotland. Come along and join us, be part of a vibrant network and part of the family. Now, sit back, relax, and happy listening. My guest today is Dr. Kate Cameron, CEO and founder of biotech company Cytochroma. Kate is a stem cell scientist and an AccelerateHER award winner. Kate, welcome. Delighted to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
And it's been so long since we've caught up, actually.
I know, I was trying to think. Yeah, maybe 6 months more?
Could be more than that. So, but I do want to hear what's happened in the last 6 months, but I'm going to go much further back than that first.
Okay.
Here's a question I've never asked you before. When you were a wee girl at school, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I didn't really know what I wanted to be when I grew up, but I was obsessed with reading encyclopedias. And my mum would know when I'd fallen asleep because there was a massive thud, and that was the book hitting the floor as I'd fallen asleep. And I was obsessed with like learning and facts and did you know that the solar system is this big, etc. And I wanted to have my name in an encyclopedia. So I kind of pursued science at school and then at uni, and then that kind of led me all the way here. So
Yeah.
Do
you know, I was just talking about encyclopedias yesterday. I was delivering a workshop to some very young students and discussing the fact that we were excited when we got, was it Encarta? The
CDs,
yeah. all the CDs that you had to.
I know, I'm probably showing how old I am, like an actual encyclopedia book, yes.
Yeah. I mean, a book is going even further back. Have you got your name in an encyclopedia now, Kate?
No, but I've got my name in Edinburgh Uni Library with my thesis, so
I think
probably nobody's read that though.
Well, I don't know. I'm sure probably somewhere someone has.
Yeah.
So you studied science at university, stem cell science specifically? Or
reproductive biology for my honours. So it was biology with reproductive biology honours. And then I did a PhD in bone regeneration. So
in bone regeneration. So now I've got this picture in my head of like in Harry Potter when they give him the stuff to regrow his bone. Not quite that.
Kind of like that. So it was in collaboration with a company based in London that made these bone graft materials. So it kind of looks like Rice Krispies. And then they mix that with bone marrow and then they use it for spinal fixation. Like if people have had a car crash and need to solidify their spine. So my job was to see how the stem cells interacted with the material. So I had the glamorous job of getting people that had hip replacements at the hospital. I'd get the hip in a wee tub, take it over to the labs, wrap it up in loads of bits of paper and plastic, and then smash it on the floor with a hammer, and then scoop out all the bone marrow. So, it's kind of not your average day in the office.
No, it's certainly not. Do you know, my husband just had his hip replaced 2 weeks ago, and he was, I mean, what a difference in 2 weeks. It's incredible. But he did want to get his old joint. And I absolutely forbade it. I was not having.
I'd be a great cane topper, no?
Yeah, that's what he thought.
Yeah. Or just like a doorknob or something like for your knocker on your front door, no?
Oh, yeah, that would certainly be different from the Ring doorbell anyway. So have I got you to thank a little bit for how smoothly his operation went?
No, 100%. That's all the orthopedic surgeon's job. But yeah, it's helping. I think every little bit goes into helping people over time. Science can be quite at the bench and then it takes a while for it to impact people, but it definitely trickles down to improving people's lives.
Yeah. So from that PhD, where does Cytochroma fit in? How did you tell us what Cytochroma does? Because I just think this is, whenever anyone asks me to give an example of an amazing business that I've worked with, I always quote you because I think what you do is just incredible.
So Cytochroma manufactures mini hearts and mini livers from genetically diverse stem cells. So our goal is to make mini organs that can be used for testing or discovering, testing and validating new drugs, ultimately replacing animal testing and accelerating new drugs through to clinical development. So
I just love how casually you say that. It's like we're just creating mini livers, as if you're like, I don't know, throwing fish and chips in the fryer. And
it's a little bit more complicated than that.
I would think it would be.
And I'm not really allowed in the lab these days, so I'm sat at an office desk just writing grants and applying for investment and doing all the glamorous non-scientist stuff these days. But we've got a fantastic team that are doing that. So
do you miss the scientist stuff?
I do. Occasionally I come down and sneak a look at the cells and try and understand what's happening. Yeah, I think that like it's where it all started. It's where the passion came from. You know, I think I was always fascinated when I went into lab and just anything was possible. You could add a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and then tomorrow you'd find out what's happened. And I think that kind of sort of always learning and exploring is really interesting.
So you, I mean, obviously fascinated in that from a young age and just exploring stuff. How did that turn into a business? Were you ever fascinated in how business works? And
I was, and it came from a business plan competition. So after my PhD, I did 6 years worth of postdocing, so like full-time researching, and that was focused on looking at generating liver for regenerative medicine.
That's easy for you to say.
Yeah, it's not really. Regen med, that's what we call it. That's why we call it that. So yeah, for regenerative medicine. And it was involving taking the whole process of stem cells, making it animal-free, suitable for human transplantation. And that was very difficult. It took me about 6 years and still didn't quite make it to the end point. But during that process, I used some automation to make the process faster and kind of press a button rather than pipetting all the time. And I'd sort of built this platform that had made manufacturing these cells really easy, reliable, reproducible. And then we got introduced to apply for this business plan competition as part of the postdoc that we're running. And then I applied for that and I got really into it. And I was just like, I'm going to design a logo. I'm going to have this as my mascot. I had a little parrot. It was a very kind of cheesy, multicolored logo. And I came up with the name Cytochroma. So cyto means cell and chroma being color. And then cytochrome is like a liver enzyme. So it was kind of, I play on all 3 words there. And I came up with the name, business plan, and then I costed everything. And I figured out how much it cost to make one dish of cells or 200. And I spent hours on it. And I just got really fascinated with the whole, how would I brand it? How would I market it? Who would I want on my team? And then I went down to London and presented this. It was like a pitch you had to do and a poster. And I absolutely knocked it out of the park. Everyone else had just kind of done a basic scientific poster and kind of probably didn't put the same amount of effort as I did. So I won, like, I think it was £200, and I was chuffed because that meant I could fix my broken iPhone.
Back in those days, £200 was a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, this was about 8 years ago, or 7-8 years ago. So yeah, it was a while ago. And then as part of that winning that competition somehow put me into the semi-finals of an international business plan competition that was part of a regenerative medicine conference in Switzerland. So I got to go to Davos, where all the big wigs come for their G8 summits, and I had to get there. I think it was like, because I had an interview the day, and then I was like flying out that afternoon. I had to get a flight, and then I had to get a train to Davos. And if I missed any of them, they were all the last ones. So I was extremely stressed, and it was just like on the plane, fine, got onto the first train, and then was in the wrong platform for the second train. Someone like grabbed my hand and like showed me the right place, and the trains just gradually got smaller and smaller until I was on this like tiny little red train that was like it was made out of Lego, going through these like the hills in the Swiss Alps, and then arriving to Davos and got dropped at the foot of this hill of this hotel, and it was absolutely pouring rain. And I was thinking, I understand why people have private jets. I bet Barack Obama didn't arrive in the same fashion. So that was kind of like a bit of a stressful arrival. And then I was pitching the next day and I had to stand on this big stage, probably where they were, and pitch the company with all these amazing other companies that had been around for a couple of years and they all had millions of pounds behind them. And I was like, they're like, how long have you had your business? And I was like, 2 weeks. And they were like, what? And I was like, yeah, I just kind of came up with it 2 weeks ago. So here we are. And I got second place. And I was just like, what? This is unreal. These people were amazing. They had super slides. They had advanced business plans. They had co-founders. They had everything that I didn't. And yeah, I got the big comedy check and I was just so chuffed. And I said on stage then there, I'm going to start this business. I'm going to do it. So everyone thinks it sounds like a good idea. Now I've got the money. Let's go. So yeah, I left the uni and had my sort of redundancy pay from that. And I sat in my back bedroom, a spare bedroom, and came up with a sort of slightly better business plan and applied for the Royal Society of Edinburgh Enterprise Fellowship. So I applied for that twice. Didn't get in the first time, but got in the second time. And that was the interview before Davos. So yeah, that kind of led to the start, I think, of the company. So it's kind of conception to idea, decision making, and then kind of to having the funds to actually do it full time. So
Okay.
not $2,000, the RSE Enterprise Fellowship. So that was amazing. That was funded by the BBSRC. So it's like a science funding council. And that paid my wage for a year and gave me some money to buy lab equipment, etc. So
Brilliant. Good starter for you then. Okay, so I'm going to pause your story there. We have a slot in the podcast, sort of like an agony aunt slot. So we've asked founders that we work with to tell us the questions that they have that they would like experienced founders like yourself to answer, Kate. And this one came up from someone in LinkedIn and it really made me think of you, and I'll explain why in a minute. But the question is that they've said, I'm really struggling to manage my time between running my business, making plans for my business, taking advantage of all the opportunities like accelerators, etc., that are available just now. And that's before I even think about starting to manage an investment round. Have you got any tips for managing all of that?
Possibly, yeah. So I have a fantastic mentor who has been an amazing source of inspiration, calm, and getting me to where I am now. And he's always said that you'll never get through everything. You just have to prioritize. And something that's really helped me is writing down everything that I want to do and trying to figure out what's the first thing that I can do that will push the needle to advance the business. So yes, all those things are incredibly important, but something has to go in an order of preference. And I think, starting the business, running the business, doing all those important things. Accelerators are fantastic, especially the investing woman one. But I think they come around and they're cyclical. Every 6 months, every year, there's going to be a new Scottish Edge, entry kind of thing. So I think really focus on the bones to start with, and then kind of you can say no to things, which is something that took me a while to learn. Prioritize, and then you'll get through it. Or, my to-do list is never done. That's one thing that stresses me out constantly. But I think prioritization is key. Making sure that you know what you're doing.
I struggle a bit with prioritisation because quite often there's a lot of people shouting loud to get stuff done that's maybe not as important as something else that you should get done. How do you manage that?
Yeah, so one thing I was like in a slave to emails for a long period of time, and then what I realised is writing down the important things to get done. So I have like a list for each week what I need to get done, and that's my priority list. I'll block out times in my diary to get them done, and then I'll go back and look at emails. And then I've downloaded this amazing AI program, so I'm kind of trying to integrate AI into the business, called Fixer, and it basically prioritizes your emails, so it finds out what you need to reply to, which removes like about 20% immediately, if not more. And then it also drafts emails for you. So, which is a bit of a, you have to check it to make sure it's not saying anything incorrectly. But it's really good for just maintaining, like, getting through the conversations and just having the bones to reply to people.
Yeah.
And just saying, I'll get back to you with that tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes and then it says, hey, Kate, you need to reply to this email with this attachment. And it's a game changer. So.
Oh, that's very cool. Fair, sir. We're not in any commission, but it sounds like one worth trying.
Yeah.
So I hope that's helped you. I think it's something that we all struggle with. So if you've got any tips for time management, then email in the podcast at accelerateher.co.uk, or jump on our business page on LinkedIn and tell us your tips. Thank you, Kate. One of the reasons I thought you'd be really good for answering that question, you and I first met, I want to say 2019, the first time you entered the AccelerateHER Awards. And you weren't a winner, but I remember one of the judges asking you how you would manage to make all those stem cell livers and do all the stuff that was needed for the business, to drive the business forward. And I remember how casually you answered that, well, you go into the lab in the morning and you set up the machine and then you leave it running and you go away and you do all the other stuff and then you come back and the livers are ready. And I just remember it being so, I remember the judge's chin hitting the ground actually, because you were just so casual about it. And I think you are a person who manages to look very calm.
Ask my team and they can tell you when I'm stressed. They're like, she's in stress mode now. You okay, Kate? Yeah.
So, but it's not all been fancy trips to Switzerland and all that. So tell us the tough bits. What have the low points been, Kate?
I think for every sort of trip to Switzerland or trip elsewhere, there's always been like a low. I think, maybe try not to get emotional. So some of the stuff has been quite tough. I think it's being a solo founder has been really tough. I don't remember that exact moment that you were talking about there, but I remember thinking, I have to grow the cells, I have to make the livers, I have to do everything like that person was saying. And that is incredibly tough. I think anybody that's starting a business, if you can find a co-founder or get a team as soon as possible to support each other and have that space to talk openly about what's worrying you and just have that sounding board, I think is always really important. I think that's how I've managed to gather a good network around me. So having friends, family, other people running businesses, people that are like yourselves involved in the startup community, and having the board and the team and etc. So building that out has been really important. Other low points I think are not getting funding or grants and that kind of thing. Like you put your heart and soul into these applications, and when you don't win the trip to America, you get into lockdown and you get a virtual trip to America. That's a bit of a bummer. So I think it's kind of managing your expectations and making sure that you get what you need, not necessarily always what you want. It's always been difficult for me fundraising, and I've always perceived that as that my slide deck's not good enough or I'm not explaining the business clearly enough. And then it was more recently when the Pathways report came out, which highlighted that for every £1 a male founder gets, a woman gets something like the equivalent of 2 pence.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that can't be right. And I read the whole report, was just like astonished at this. And I thought, do I need to get a male co-founder in? Thankfully, I've not had to do that, but I have learned that having a diverse team helps.
Yeah.
At the early stages, a lot of the team that we gathered were female, and having males join the team definitely made it more diverse, and having people from different backgrounds as well has been really important. So I think everything that's been tough I've learned from, and I think that's the best that you could do. I think it's a lonely at the top, but I think having team and that really makes a big difference.
Was it a conscious decision not to bring in a co-founder? Did you ever consider it at any point?
I did, and I've been on the hunt ever since. So there's a fantastic resource called Campfire, which is a newsletter run by Robert Gelb, and he created this spreadsheet effectively of people that are looking for co-founders. And I've been working through the list of who I think could be good. I've met up with a whole bunch of amazing people, one of whom has turned out to be my mentor. He was just like, I know nothing about science. I'm a computer tech guy. But he's like, I think you've got something. I'm going to help you. So I have like a weekly call with him, and he keeps me on track and has been responsible for most of the sales that we've had so far. This going, stop doing science that you want to play in a dish and start doing stuff that people want to buy. So still looking. Yeah, if anyone thinks they can join the team as a co-founder, open to applications. So,
But you do have a team around you now. So how many are in the Cytochroma team at the moment?
It's very small still. So we've been on a shoestring for the last year, I would say. We've got Kaja, who's our fantastic scientist. Shout out to her. She's been a rock of support and just a whiz kid in the lab. And then more recently, we've recruited Philip Starkey-Lewis, who I used to work with back in my postdoc days. So it's kind of been a blast catching up on each other's progress in the past 7 years. And he brings a fantastic experience because he was co-founder of a company called Resolution Therapeutics, which is a regenerative medicine therapeutics for using macrophages, which are like the Pac-Man of cells. They go around and munch up debris in the liver.
I love the way you dumb that down for me, Kate.
For everyone, it's not just you, don't worry. So yeah, they munch up bad stuff in the body, and they're using them to treat liver cirrhosis. And it just so happened that we got this contract in with a pharma company that wanted to make these cells, and he reached out at the time that I was applying for. I had some job applications open, and he said, "Hey, I don't think I'm the scientist that you want, but I'm looking for work, and this is my background." So he's joined the team and is kind of doing operations, lab management, making sure we all actually have proper systems and making sure it's all more organized. Definitely, I'm a bit more chaotic strategy, big picture, and he's a lot more organized folders, making sure that everything gets ticked off and everything's done to the highest standard. So
every organisation needs both types of people.
Yeah.
I'm the chaotic person. I've got Alison Luke Jones to keep me in line with our spreadsheets and everything. That's
so good.
Yeah. So yes, 2% of certainly venture capital funding goes to women, which is just not good enough. But I'm always keen to point out that whilst women get less funding, they do get it. Because I don't like to create a narrative, particularly not for early stage founders starting on their journey, to think that it's not even worth trying. I won't get investment. And you have got investment. You are one of these people who have got investment. So talk me through that story, Kate, because we know that it's harder for women to get investment. It's harder for biotech companies to get investment because they need patient investors who are willing to wait longer for that exit. And you're a woman in predominantly a man's world. So you had quite a lot of odds against yourself. I was sorry to hear that you were blaming your efforts and your pitch deck because the odds were stacked against you, but you still did it. So talk me through that journey. How much have you raised now? If you give me a ballpark figure if you want to go into specifics.
So we've raised just over $1 million in non-dilutive funding, so grants and competitions, etc. And then about £600,000 in equity investment.
Yeah.
So that's from angel investors such as Investing Women Angels, other fantastic groups including Angel Academy, Cambridge Capital Group, Equity Gap and Scottish Enterprise. So they've all been people that have invested and we've given them shares. So that's the sort of cap table, so to speak. The other investment has been through Innovate UK, Scottish Enterprise, Scottish Edge, various sort of funding councils that have given us grants, non-dilutive funding to grow the business. So
just for anyone who's listening who doesn't understand that phrase, non-dilutive, that's where you get money into the business, but you don't have to give them any of the shares in your business. So you retain the control of the business, but they've put the money in. So grants and loans and things like that work, fill that gap for you.
And they definitely help out, especially at the early stages where you're still trying to get like proof of concept, still before you get your first sale kind of thing.
It's helped you build value in the business before you go for investment as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And they can always be used alongside investment as well to sort of double that investment or match it sometimes. So that's kind of the chunk. I would say one that I never thought it was because I was female until I read that report.
That's interesting.
So I think, don't think of yourself as female, so I can't get this or I can't get that. I think just put yourself on the even playing field. And I think it's important to have diverse teams, diverse investors, and I mean that as in kind of people from different backgrounds and men and women. I think it's important to have both people in the conversation. We're not going to get anywhere if we have purely women
Absolute
focus groups and male focus groups, and if we stop teaching each other or treating each other as groups and just working together, helping each other, I think that's definitely the way forward. Trying to remember what else you said. So what have we used the funding for?
Yeah. Tell us. I just want to really sort of hear what's it all about, your journey raising the finance. And
so it was all during COVID. So I mean, I think my first live pitch was just the year before last. So I did all my pitching online, which is a blessing, I think, because I had you can have a cozy blanket on your lap and wear whatever you want. 2, you can have all the answers typed out in front of you and your script and your post like on the wall in front of you. I wish I had all the answers just written on the wall here. But yeah, you can be really creative about, getting yourself prepared and set up for it, and you don't have to have it on a tiny little card or whatever. So I think that kind of calmed me down. And
although you have the same affliction as me, you have to shut the cat out of the room, don't you, so that they don't interrupt.
They do love walking across the keyboard, and I know it's a good person on the call when they come in because they can sense who's good vibes and bad vibes, I think.
Yeah.
But occasionally they will just sit in my lap and keep me company, which is kind of nice.
Keep you calm.
Yeah. They're always good. So yeah, pitching online, loved it. Pitching in person, you definitely get a lot more of like how people are feeling. You can kind of smile directly at people and they'll smile back, or you can kind of read them a bit better than trying to see everyone's face on a tiny screen. So yeah, mixed pitching kind of experience. Terrifying always, because it feels like you're bearing your soul, and especially because it's kind of my company that from the start that I feel very overprotective of it. So any kind of criticism, I find it hard not to take as criticism of myself. But I think going in, being confident, having all the answers that you can possibly imagine to all the questions that could possibly be asked definitely helps. We're going out for another round of investment at the moment. So it's really kind of building up and being really American, I guess, about how all your achievements and kind of learning not to be a sort of coorie Scottish girl and being boastful about
blowing your own trumpet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I've done this. We've done 10x that. We've had these sales. We've had all these kind of wins over the past year. I think raising investment now, hopefully, fingers crossed, will be easier than raising investment when you didn't have a product and you didn't have a customer and you were kind of at the conception stage. So so hopefully. I'll report back soon on that. Yeah,
we'll get you back for the next season.
Yeah, I'll have like a fancy jacket.
So you'll have turned up in your private jet and and all that.
Yeah.
So, what was your biggest lesson from your last fundraising round? Shall we say, just to put you on the spot?
Biggest lesson, I guess it's just being prepared. Mm-hmm. I think that's always, when you're prepared and when you're not. I've got a pitch next week, and I need to make sure that I've got the script burned into my brain before I do that. So, be prepared, and then I think, showing the progress that you've made always helps. So I think having a clear goal of where you've come from, what you've achieved, and what you're going to do with the money, and being really clear and honest, and just kind of get them excited about what you're excited about and where you're going to go and what you're going to build.
I always tell founders that I work with that your business, so you've got the edge there for a start. But there's maybe areas you're a bit weak on, maybe finance or whatever. Gen up on that so that you've got the answers.
Oh yeah.
Or bring someone into the team that can answer those questions for you as well. Yeah. Kate, I completely agree with you on the diverse groups of people. You want all sort of walks of life coming in and bringing ideas into your business. But of course, things have been skewed to being male only for a long time in a lot of areas. And I think medical testing is somewhere that we're all now more aware of, that it has been very skewed. So I wanted to ask you about this. And I was reminded, I saw a post on Instagram this morning, and I think I only read it this morning, but I can't exactly remember the stats, but it was something like 80% of chronic pain sufferers are female, but 90% of medical testing on chronic pain is done on men. And for anyone who's read the book Invisible Women, it talks there about the fact that there is no legislation that says that any drug testing or medical device testing or anything has to be done in anything other than a white male. Is that correct?
I think there's requirements, definitely. There's goals, but I don't know if the exact requirements. So I was totally shocked in the same way as yourself that the majority of animal testing is all done on male animals. For the exactly same reason that most of the people in clinical trials are males, is that they don't have, one, they can't have babies, and two, they don't have the same kind of hormone fluctuations over the course of a month or whatever, or a lifetime that women do. So effectively, they're not as complicated as women. So that's why they use males. But as a result, all these medicines are developed that are safe for men.
Yeah.
And then are used by women. Like, women are twice as likely to die of a paracetamol overdose because all the dosing for paracetamol was calculated on men. So there's drugs that have been taken all the way through to market and then are being released for women and men, or they're kind of general population, and they've never been tested in groups. So that's one thing that Cytochroma is directly addressing, is we have 50% male, 50% female stem cell lines. So we've derived all our mini organs from men and women, and they're from backgrounds that are lacking clinical trials. So not just white Caucasian backgrounds, they're from Asian, African, Native American, all over the world. And it's really important that we represent not just women, but people that are less likely to be involved in clinical trials due to trust, access, financial reasons, a whole host of reasons. So I think having the capacity to test the safety and effect of drugs much earlier on is so powerful, because we can prevent them failing during clinical trials when they start getting tested in these groups, and then when they reach the market.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that African women are more likely to die from childbirth complications in the UK because just clinicians and staff are unaware of the nuances of treating them for various things, and that's just horrific. I'm so delighted that what you're doing is helping to address that. What more can be done though? I mean, why are we not?
Why?
Why? Exactly.
Well,
I mean,
it's because people understand themselves, right? So we understand women's needs, but we don't necessarily understand a man's perspective, or somebody else's perspective, or somebody that grew up in a different area or from a different continent. So the more diverse the doctors, the better the treatment for the patients. The more diverse the investors, the more diverse funding. Women will get funding, men will get funding, people that have the best businesses will get the most funding. And I think it's getting there, because up until not that long ago, women were at home raising kids, and now there's kind of a more 50-50 in the workforce. And I think hopefully over our lifetime we'll see drastic changes in the levels of women at the top. I mean, the Forbes top 10 companies, or top 100 companies, now have 40% of women on the board C-levels. So it's happening, changes are happening, and I think hopefully treatment is getting better for people, but we need to have diversity at all levels.
Yeah.
And I think funding for women is really important in supporting them through that, through building these innovative businesses and driving change in healthcare. So there's also, I know I just talk forever.
No.
Is that there was, during COVID, there was like a really huge impact in Black people or Native American and African American people, that blood monitors basically can't measure through their skin the same way it does, because they're all designed for white skin. So a whole bunch of tests and treatments are just not suitable because we're small-minded people are building things for themselves and not for everyone.
Yeah. And do you think that it's possible that there's medicines and procedures and things that haven't made it to market because they haven't worked for white people or they haven't worked for white men, and they never thought, well, let's see if it would work on a Black woman? Or
probably, yeah. Because I mean, if that's what we're testing on, and that's the patient group that passes or fails, I think that's what I'm really excited about Cytochroma, is because there's potential that we can, one, test the safety of an effective drugs in a diverse population really quickly and fast and safe and all these amazing things. They don't need animals to do it. A lot of our processes are animal free. And then there's possibility of sort of modeling clinical trials in the dish and doing large scale screens for compounds that have failed previously that could be repurposed for other treatments. And one thing I'm super excited about with the sort of AI side of things is all these AI companies are building new drugs and new molecules based on clinical trial data and papers published. But again, they're building it on biased data. We can provide the diverse data that will make their companies smarter, that will make drug development for these AI companies more predictive of a global population. Like, there's a really funny story I've recently learned that if you type into, these kind of AI image generators, if you ask it to produce a picture of a full to the brim glass of wine, it can't do it because there's not pictures of that online. In the same way that you ask it to make a picture of a man cleaning a toilet, you get some hilarious results of men with hairbrushes sitting on top of a toilet, because there's just not that. All the pictures are online of women cleaning toilets. There's just, you can't predict what you don't know. So the more powerful the data set, the more predictive the AI. So
and you can't be what you can't see.
Exactly.
Which has come up in many of my conversations for the podcast. Kate, thank you on behalf of everyone whose lives you're going to make a difference in the future because of what you're doing. I could continue this conversation with you for a very long time. I think it's something we're both very passionate about. I'm going to call a halt to it there and move on to our quick fire questions at the end. But if you want to read a little bit more on this subject and you haven't already read the book Invisible Women, it's a great place to start. But be warned, you might need to read it a chapter a week to let yourself calm down in between each chapter to move on to the next one. So Kate, I've got 5 quick fire questions for you. The answers so far have not been terribly quick, so that's okay, don't worry about that. But first of all, what's the best piece of advice you've ever ignored?
I've obviously done a good job of ignoring it because I can't think of any immediately. More recently, I got a good piece of advice, which is maybe more useful for people, hopefully, is keep your head up in failure and down in success. So basically keep going, keep trucking, and then when the going gets good, keep doing it. Stop basking in your own glory and thinking, well, I've got 1 sale. Maybe I could get 2, maybe I could get 4, so that's definitely been my mantra for the past year. Keep going, and it'll get better. And then when the sales start rolling in, don't pop too many bottles of champagne at once. So
Do you know, Kate, you maybe haven't realised it, but I think that's been your mantra all through life. I remember at those first AccelerateHER awards, and you weren't a winner. You had tough competition. You lost to good people, but you were the first one over to the table to open the Prosecco for the celebrations. And you could put that down to being partial to Prosecco. As you and I both are. But I think that was a real testament to your character that you didn't hang your head or leave because you hadn't won. You stayed and celebrated anyway. So I think that's always been your philosophy. Who would you dream of having as a mentor for the day?
See, I always get asked about who is an inspiration or who would be the ideal mentor. And I always just think about stupid answers like Musk or Trump, because I think that they're great at blowing on their own trumpet. I've been really fortunate to build a team of scientific advisors, a board from California to keep that Silicon Valley mindset. And my
Because you did eventually get the in-person trip to America.
I did, and it's pretty spectacular. Yeah, having a glass of wine with Bob Bozeman was definitely a highlight. Yeah. So, mentors. Yeah, they're probably not the people on TV or the people that you think you need. They're probably closer to home than you think. But yeah, speak to loads of people. You'll find somebody that's an inspiration, and you'll find a lot of people with advice. And I think people that give impartial advice, that aren't maybe not investors and maybe not your board, they're probably the best mentors or the best people to ask.
Yeah, so that's a very good point. There's probably people listening that wouldn't mind having you as a mentor, I will say.
I'd be open to it, but I will say that, I'm a very busy woman.
You are indeed a very busy woman. So in which case, Kate, what is your guilty pleasure when you need to unwind?
See, my sister takes the mickey out from me for this. During lockdown, I asked Alexa to play happy music to cheer me up, and she put on this playlist called Happy Country for Summer Nights, and it was all country music, like American cheesy Shania Twain, Zach Bryan country music, and it cheers you right up. It does. It's happy music.
Fabulous.
So whenever I've had like a busy or a stressful day or even a good day, I get in the car, put on the country music, and sing along all the way home, and you're de-stressed by the time you get back.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
just make sure the windows aren't down if you're stopped at traffic lights.
Oh,
sing your heart out.
Sing it, yeah. Get the windows down, get the sunroof open, and sing it. Yeah, yeah. Sing along to whatever music you like, and I think definitely that's a good stress relief. But the country music is quite a niche, I think.
No, but listen, there's no judgment here.
Yeah.
I do love a bit of Dolly Parton. What is the best book or podcast or TV show that you have read or watched? And it doesn't have to be a business one, by the way. Everyone struggles to try and find a business one. It's just whatever you're enjoying.
Probably on the country theme, I've been enjoying Yellowstone. Cowboys in Wyoming. Yeah, it's kind of another, I guess, kind of Americana vibes. And there's also, by the same director, one called Landman. And it's got Billy Bob Thornton about drilling oil in Texas. And it's quite, very different from the day job. I do struggle to watch like any kind of scientific programs because then I get stressed that I'm not doing science. So sometimes it's kind of good to have a break.
Yeah.
Diary of a CEO is really good.
Yeah.
There's always really good guests. I'm not a huge fan of Stephen Bartlett, but he does ask good questions.
Yeah, he does have good guests. Yeah.
Yeah. And then occasionally a Joe Rogan podcast if you're feeling adventurous and open to alternatives. Yeah.
So my son used to listen to that a lot, but he hasn't. So it's a while since I've heard any Joe Rogan.
Yeah. My husband likes it and occasionally sends over notable guests. So it's very, very rare that I dive into that because they can be quite controversial.
Kate, one word, if you can, to describe your business journey.
Unexpected.
Unexpected.
Everything is unexpected. The highs, the lows, the sales, the people you get to meet, everything. Yeah. But it's been amazing. So amazing if you want something more positive, I guess. Yeah.
No, I think unexpected is quite positive as well. So I'll let you keep that one, but you can have two. Amazing and unexpected.
Yeah.
Kate, you are amazing, but I expected that. So thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me today, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks for listening to me chat to another amazing female founder. I hope you enjoyed that. Of course, this podcast wouldn't have been possible without the backing and support of some amazing organisations. The Scottish Government, who funded this through their Pathways Fund, Barclays Bank for letting us record this in their amazing Glasgow campus, to Podplistic for seamlessly recording this and cutting out all of my bloopers, and of course to the guests for giving their time to come along and chat to me. If you want to hear more about AccelerateHER, please do follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram. Pop over to our website, accelerateher.co.uk, and sign up to our newsletter. I look forward to seeing you at an AccelerateHER event soon.